Our engineer points out that the Illinois EPA ultimately will require some kind of, what you call it, a certificate,
It's a permit from them.
permitting to replace the water main. Whereas opposed if it was a water main break and we had to dig up 900 feet and fix it, we could do it before you had a permit in hand, right?
Correct.
So to some extent, maybe after June 1st, we go for a water main break and get the work done at our schedule. But I think all of us want to comply with the requirements and to go forward with that. Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was the process of getting sufficient drawings such that we can file an application for a permit with the IEPA, and getting the permitting is about a 60-day time period, correct?
That's fast track.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do we get it fast track? Well, we'll worry about that, but my thought was that if we could get the engineers to move forward on this and get it going no later than May 1st, and all the other stars line up, we should have the permit by the end of June, and that way we could get the water main company, construction company to come in and do the work no earlier than July 1st, but sometime shortly after that. And the thought here and the concept I'm throwing out is that if we go out to bid, it will push that time period further back. And if it pushes the time period further back on doing the water main, then it delays the street program. I don't want to see the street program delayed. I would rather the streets being paved and repaired over the summer, and if it's got awfully hot, then that be it. But when it's nice and dry, and not during a wet season, which who knows how that will affect the construction. We talked about this at some length. Some roads last longer than others, and what's going on, and what type of work do the companies do, and so forth, and weather is a factor to that. And a few years ago, we paved the parking area around the village hall, and that was supposed to be, about a 10-day job? It took the entire month of October because it kept raining. And after it rains, I think it was 3 or 4 days of dry weather on the gravel before you can lay the first layer of asphalt. And that's why I don't want to see the street program delayed beyond the time period that Dave has fashioned. So then the issue becomes, if you go out for bid for the construction of the water main replacement, and there is a way around doing that so that we wouldn't have to, we'll delay the project. So if we ultimately decide we want to keep the street program moving forward and keeping it in a time period of roughly June 1st to finish by the end of September, then we need to be able to have a company that will come out and do the job for us when we tell them to come out and do it, while the street is torn up, and replace the water main and get the new stuff in and get the people turned on for it, and then we come by and finish the road. That's what I would prefer to do. And as I understand the way we can do that, and Council, I know I haven't talked to you about this in detail, but it's my understanding that if the board votes with I believe it's a 3/5 majority, we can award a contract for construction on the water main without going out to bid.
2/3 of the trustees
Okay.
holding office.
Okay. So if we can ultimately agree to do that and award it to somebody with the proviso, I'm thinking it's like just preliminary 170,000. We'd like to squeeze it if we could get it for 150 or 160, with the proviso that, look, when we call you up and say, it's Wednesday, we say you need to be out there next Monday and start the project and fix that, replace the water main, because we've got a paving crew that's going to get over there. We can do that with the majority vote as opposed to going out to bid. The kind of money we're talking here is a lot of money. It certainly is over the $20,000 where you would normally have to go out for bid. I'm comfortable with recommending something like that. In fact, I'm comfortable with recommending Uno just on the basis of they were the low bidder with the Cochise water main. If the board decides they would rather go out to bid, you know, that's your decision to make, but you have to understand that's the ramification that it might push back the street program. So, 900 feet of water main at approximately 170,000. But, you know, the good news is that we're actually in a position, Ed, where I would tell you and John, just as we were able to pick up the phone and have Uno come out and take a look and maybe give us an estimate, I don't see any reason why we couldn't get one or two others just like that from somebody else. And at least we have a basis of comparison and find out what they might charge. But you have to make clear that, you know, they're getting a favor by not having to go through a bidding process. You expect them that when we call them up to come out and do this, because we don't want to hold up the paving crew, we want them to report. Ed, how long did you say you estimated, or they told you that the work would take to do the water main?
They told me they can put it in 7 working days.
Okay, 7 working days, and that includes 2 days where it's already in and it's just they're testing the water for
Well,
purity.
that's 7 getting the water main in, and maybe 2 days hooking up the water services, and then there's 2 days of just testing the water.
So it'd be up to 9 days?
Maybe, yeah, 10 working days.
Okay, so roughly 2 weeks' time.
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
When we went through the water main priority sheets, we had, just to, again, my memory is sometimes not very good. We had 5 identified areas of trouble spots that you had identified on a water break map, which we had recent water breaks on Shibona, Tecumseh, Blackhawk, Pontiac. Breaks in Cascade and in Acacia were older breaks, but still numerous, right?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm asking you is, because I know we're redoing that street and that's why you're thinking about this right now, you know, there were other worse areas, right?
Well, there's a top 5 list.
Right. So all my point is, and we don't have to talk about this now, is, you know, we do have to talk about it as it relates to doing the street, right? But the other thing is, you know, is there an advantage to doing any of the other work, because we know we had another problem?
I would think, yeah, Pontiac, we're gonna do the same sort of work we're doing in Cascade, so I'd be in favor of doing both Pontiac and Cascade. And from the work that the estimates that we had back when we looked at the water mains, we're saving 20 or 30%. I assume that's because Uno, wherever, doesn't have to dig up the street and then resurface the street. So then Pontiac, we listed at 250,000, and at that, you know, discounted rate because of the other work, we could get that down to roughly 200. So we could do them both for 350 or whatever the number is, and I think we have about 600,000 in that water fund. I don't know that all of it is disposable income or disposable money, we may have to have some for payment, but I know that fund has been building up over the years, so I think this is a great time to do 2 of the 5.
It's about 530,000 in the water fund that will be available after it accounts water payments that were made in March, which weren't reflected on the financial report.
My point is,
No, I'm just suggesting that
just want to look at it,
rather than, I think we should. I think we
right?
should.
I'm not saying I know the right ones, I'm just saying from the break.
We just went with
No.
Cascade, that was the recommendation
Right,
of our
and I think it's a
water
great
system.
idea, and I'm just saying, the other one, I think the number one was the one on Joliet, if I remember right. That was number 1 on your list. Number 2 was the Blackhawk Trail. 3 was the Pontiac and Tecumseh. 4 was Shavona. And the most current breaks were the 2012 on Pontiac that comes in and Shavona.
In Pontiac, I had 10 breaks and 11 breaks in Cascade
Yep,
on the sheet that,
yeah, we're looking at the same thing. So good food for thought for you to think about.
but I like the idea of doing them both, why not? We've got the money, and, you know, what are we saving that money for? I think it's for road work, water system work. We're digging up the road, I think it's the time to do both.
and I'm all for looking at and getting the price. The thing is, we need to have some kind of reserve in the water fund if we have to go ultimately replace other areas. So I personally don't think it's prudent to take it down to next to nothing, but it's something to look at, right? I'm not trying to favor Cascade over Pontiac or any of the other
Right.
streets.
No,
My point, what I favor is, if we're gonna do major work on a street, and that needs a water main replacement at that time, let's
what
try
would
to
you
take
feel
care of.
comfortable with the reserve?
I
You know, you
think we
don't
should
wanna spend it
discuss that.
all.
You know, I would look to have some input from Ed and perhaps Dave on having some kind of reserve.
But I think we have roughly 200,000 in reserve. Assuming that we got the discount off, you know, like Cascade, Pontiac, the same thing. I think the logic we use for Cascade, which makes sense, why do the street and have to dig it up, which I think applies to Pontiac.
Well, you said some figures, what was your estimate again on Pontiac?
Well, Pontiac, the sheet that we got for the infrastructure was 250,000. And Cascade was 225,000. But again, I think, you know, not having to tear up the road and replace the road, I think that's where we're seeing some of the savings.
Is that from this prior handout that had all the?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I see. Well, we do have the roughly 500,000, and to do Cascade and Pontiac, if the 150 or 170 holds true for Cascade,
Just so I'm clear, we're gonna go from
400,000.
Shabona, basically along Tecumseh and Pontiac.
I was suggesting Pontiac, not Shabona.
Yeah, Tecumseh and Pontiac is what I would suggest if
Yeah,
you're gonna think about doing it.
this prior handout talks about 6,500 block of Pontiac, approximately 1,000 feet of water main at an estimated cost of about $250,000. And Cascade was from one Cascade to 130 Cascade, about 900 feet of water main at an estimated cost of $225. And who knows, telling us we'll do it for 170, and if you can combine both up and get an economy of scale and have it done for about 350, 400, I think that would give us still a comfortable cushion, personally.
Yeah, I know we gotta get the numbers, but I think in theory, using round numbers.
We'd have to go out there and measure the length and count the services, the valves, the hydrants, those sort of things, and then pretty quickly we can come up with an estimate in our head and then.
Which is gonna make it impossible for Dave to actually start working on the water main application permitting process by May 1st, because by the time we do all that and make a decision at the board, we're already at May 8th.
Why don't you guys talk about it, brainstorm and see what the options are, right? You might come back and then we can say it's absolutely impossible, forget it, it's, you know. But I think having a more holistic approach could be beneficial to us, and then we're not doing piecemeal, and I think sometimes in the past, when people have looked at the projects, sometimes we've done piecemeal things, and I think it behooves us to look at more holistically the infrastructure, and that's why we put that together when we did this, the whole discussion about infrastructure was to try to look this at a way where we can take advantage of economies of scale. And it may be too late to do that, but at least we can get your professional opinion from the people that know about these types of projects. You guys might say, if you're crazy, forget it, right?
So we've already kind of talked about it, Amy, and it boils down to the 60 days if everything works right for the permitting. And the question then comes back to Dave, can we specify to the contractor, whoever we award the project, don't do these two streets until we tell you, or keep them to the end of the project, to give us time to get the water mains replaced? Can we do something?
We can specify anything we want.
They want the
It's
business,
just
though.
how it impacts the rest of the project. In this particular case, I don't see any problem at all with them staying away from that section of Cascade. Given the working days they have, the asphalt and the reconstructions they have, I don't see that that would impact the cost of the project at all, to put a caveat that they can't work there, or save that till the end, I shouldn't say they can't work there. If they're done with everything and that's the last thing left, well, you better get out of their way, because they're gonna pay it if they can.
Well, it sounds like it's not that big of a risk though.
No.
We can get, if you started May 15th, then we should be able to have some kind of permitting back by July 15th. Is that reasonable?
Right now, and I was just talking about Cascade, not the other streets that came in with the tamperization. Ed managed to find some old construction plans that had planned profile of the existing storm sewer, water main, and the area of Cascade that was reconstructed. Normally, the IHP wants to see plan profile, because they want to see what you're crossing, what sanitary lines might be out there, because the permit is based on that. You put different pipe over sanitary when you build a water main. They case the sanitary, it's a lot of rigmarole. But Ed seems to have found the plans that we need, that maybe we can jury rig our application for Cascade. Now, if we go to a different part of town, we've got nothing, well, then we have to develop those things to present to the IEPA.
What if we have something for the other part, for Pontiac, for example?
Well, we'd like to see what they are.
Okay.
And the point I'm making is, we can always do a little groveling, so to speak, to the IEPA and explain our situation, what we have, why we're doing it. And they're flexible, they're not hard-headed, they can work with us. Whether or not they do, I don't know, but they could sign off on just about anything we want if we could make a good case for it.
Well, it sounds to me like it's certainly worth a try.
The time frame, if, we'll take a look and see what we got tomorrow as far as what Ed produced, put our heads together and see if what we have can be utilized for the permit application for Cascade. And we'll get back on that and tell you where we're at. If I may also suggest, we'll take, if we can get an inventory of services and water mains, which we should have on those plans too.
On the Cascade plan.
On the Cascade plans. We may have the information we need to take a look at what has to be built out there. We can go back and look at, who knows, Cochise bid items and develop another number to see if their 170 is in the ballpark of what they did Cochise for. For some reason, I think 170 is a little high, because they had a lot of restoration on Cochise, as far as pavement patching, et cetera, which is out of the picture for this one. So I think the patching was almost $50,000, wasn't it? So there's a good chance that, we'll sharpen their pencils a little bit. But correct me, you'll still need a contract with UNO even if you don't bid the project.
Right. That will take some time. But, this has been a long time coming, and I can't tell you how happy I am that we finally got this street bond passed. And we're doing some nice work for the village. And, we do have money in the water and sewer fund. It was, being raised over time to do things like this. And it makes perfect sense for me to go and do what we can while we have the opportunity, within reason that I would like to get that street program done. If we can do Cascade and Pontiac in conjunction with this, let's look forward to do it. And I don't know if we, go ahead.
I had one question, Rich, if you said it, I apologize for having you repeat yourself. You talked about the bid process and delaying. What kind of delay, was that a month or 6 months? I didn't, I didn't get it.
I'm just repeating if part of the discussion we had when we were meeting with the engineers, and Dave
Pardon me?
I want, before I put you on the spot, I wanted to not blindside you. The last discussion we had where we were talking about the Cascade water main, you indicated, at least my recollection was that if we had to go out for an RFP, by the time you designed that, put it out, got it back and opened it, that would put, and we try to coordinate with the street program, it would push the street program back. Is that, is my understanding?
Yeah, depending on how we implement the two programs, but yes, if we went through the whole process, you have to add, obviously, you have to add a month in there for the advertisement and award of the project and getting the contract signed. So there's a month added to that 60 optimistic days I gave you right out of the box. So now you're 90 days out from today if we started today.
Or 90 days out from May 1st, if they started on May 1st, and they still have to look at things. So now we're talking about August 1st. Go ahead, trustee Walsh.
I'm in favor of what everyone else had referenced. I think we should try to do as much as we can with the water mains as possible. I guess my question, it seems like we're all on the same page with that. My question is, what are we voting on tonight? Do we want to vote on whether or not it makes more sense to give a target contract to a qualified contractor so that they can be, light of foot to take action when we need to take action? And if that's the case, do we need to vote on that tonight, or doesn't we vote on it in the future? I mean, that's my question. I mean, if we need to vote on it tonight, we'll vote on it, and then, I think we're all in agreement, let's try to get as much as we can done, while the streets are being repaired.
I think what you want is to direct staff either to obtain proposals, with the thought of waiving bids at the May 8th meeting, or preparing the necessary documents to advertise for bids, get sealed bids, and go that route, which Dave has indicated will delay you about a month. So waiving bids will save you the month, advertising bids will cost you a month, but I think that's, you have to give staff some direction before you want to look.
So I would entertain a motion then to direct staff to obtain bids for Pontiac and Cascade without going out to bid. Not advertising for bid.
Right, you can get multiple bids just by soliciting, right? Right.
Right.
Just like a sealed bid as you do it a bit over.
Yeah.
So,
I will make that motion.
Okay, motion made by trustee Walsh, is there a second?
Plans?
Second by trustee Schnoffer, call the roll, please.
Sure. Trustee Walsh?
Yes.
Trustee Schnoffer?
Yes.
Trustee O'Loughlin?
yes.
Trustee Wittenberg?
Yes.
Trustee Hinshaw?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, great. That'll, we'll work to that. John? Ed?
Thank you very much.
Ask Uno about Pontiac and get a hold of a couple others and see what they say. And Dave, then I would suggest, because you're actually part of staff, our professional part in the engineering department, but to keep that in your mind to start gearing up to work in that direction for us.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do first is just work off their old contract from last year and just see if the new numbers that they're giving us are, seat of the pants numbers that he's now figure, multiply 900 times $195, and that was the way he got it, or if there was actually some thought developing those numbers. And I wouldn't blame him if he just multiplied the lineal feet by a number and gave a quote, so.
Okay, great. All right, anything else with regard to the water mains or the street program? Trustees? All right, thank you, Dave and Ed, for your work, and too, for your input at the meetings.
Rich,
Yes.
one, you had talked about your comfort level or a reserve or something, and I don't know if we need to not agree on anything, but, should we as a board try to figure out what that is. Is it 150, is it 200? I know every year it may go up, you know, but anyway, so, your comfort level may be different than my comfort level.
I certainly am comfortable with doing the Pontiac and Cascade water mains that, I think I already put it away, that, as it was indicated by estimate on here, it actually will probably come in a little bit less than what was on here, but I still think that leaves.
Maybe the finance committee could, help us with,
I think more Ed.
Yeah, I
no,
think-
the reserve level.
Yeah, well, I think, well, I apologize, Rob, I think Ed needs to tell us how much he needs in reserve to do the proper water repairs necessary. I mean, I know the finance committee can get all that input on it, they need to talk to Ed. I mean, I guess Ed, the question for you is, you know, do you have a number that you're comfortable with, do you think in
I
reserve?
can look back and develop a number and
Can you give us a recommendation?
forecast out what needs to be replaced and put some interest rates.
We certainly could talk about that,
Yeah.
more in
Don't
May,
hold
when
up
we have
anything,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Okay,
If that's a good idea, I recommend that.
good. Okay, next item, we have to go back, Kathy, do you have the exhibit A? Is this three of them or just one? Mine, there's should be two other copies out here.
You know, Mayor, I just didn't, we don't have to go through this in detail, but was there something, I'm sorry I didn't see on your list about 65th Street that, remember 65th Street was that knowledge child?
That was removed,
Removed from the list.
65th place.
Like, so, remember we haven't talked about that in a while.
65th Street?
Yeah, what,
Yeah, well, I'm still working on trying to get that done. And we, you know, where it stands is we decided last year in June that we were not going to spend the money to repave that street, that we would rather close it than spend that money. And I'm working, I know the township wanted to, split the cost of paving it with us, even though the entire street belongs to us by the annexation agreement. Surprise. In any event, I don't think that the township has changed its position, but honestly, I haven't talked to them recently. What has happened since then is I've had Council Romello working with the township attorney and trying to work out an intergovernmental agreement regarding paving that street. And there is a loggerhead with the IDOT, and I have gotten a hold of a contact in IDOT, and I've talked to our local representatives who, in one particular avenue, has hit the same loggerhead we have with IDOT.
because my only point is just that if something happened on that street, we were liable for it because we own the street, it's in disrepair, so you don't have to answer the question now. I just want to make sure we don't get into some kind of issue because we're waiting for a loggerhead to be moved when we have a liability because the street is in bad disrepair. So you don't have to answer that now, but I think we have to think about that for a contingency plan in the budget, you know, because you guys did take it off the list, and it was in there originally for what, $90-some thousand, so I just want to bring that up to you as something that we need to, you know, we gotta think about something, because if something happens there, you know, I don't wanna get into a legal issue with, hey, that's your street, and, you know, you just fell on it or something, so just food for thought.
Okay.
Because it was one of the worst streets, I think, on the list, or close to it, right?
Yeah, it's in really, it's not the greatest shape, but it's still usable, and we were going along for how many years, not even realizing it was our street.
No, I know.
Went to bed at night, never even concerned about
Now-
it, until
now
we
every-
found out.
Now everyone knows it's our street, though.
Be careful of what you know, right? I would like to move back to item number 3, which is the resolution to approve the Christopher Burke Engineering Agreement for the 2014 road improvement project. I need to pause it, but I will give you this explanation on why you didn't get this until almost on the eve of this, the actual meeting tonight, and it is a lengthy 80-some page attachment, is with the email problems I was having this evening with the village email account, and not realizing that these documents had not been forwarded to Kathy. In any event,